Aboriginal businesses, communities and families to this morning's Yarning Circle. My name's Murray. I'm part of the In the Black Northern Territory Indigenous Business Resilience Program. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge and pay respects to all Territory and traditional custodians, ancestors, elders, communities, families, and future generations, sisters and brothers, while paving their own footprints in the sands. I would like to extend my respect and deep and humble respect to all brothers and sisters that are on our event today. And today, we are proudly and gratefully joined by Sister Helena Wright, who's the Executive Director, Programs and Engagement at Territory Families. Helena's a proud, very, very proud, and I've known Helena for a fair few years, a very, very proud Kabi Kabi woman. From Queensland Sunshine Coast. She is currently the Executive Director of Programs and Engagement of Territory Families and has responsibility for a number of programs, including domestic, family and sexual violence, youth activities, multicultural affairs, seniors and gender equality. She has been in the Northern Territory for nearly 2 years and loves the lifestyle and the people. Too deadly, too deadly. Helena has 25 years experience working in government, so let's talking up my sister here. In Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs and policy areas in social, cultural and economic participation, areas across the Commonwealth, Queensland and Northern Territory governments. Through her public service work and experience, Helena has worked with organisations delivering CDP, youth employment programs, and many Indigenous businesses from startups to established businesses. Helena is the oldest of 6, is married with 2 awesome adult children, and uses her role as an Aboriginal executive in the public service to grow exposure of government to the value of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander businesses, improve outcomes for Aboriginal families, and hold her agency accountable for cultural secure practices. Welcome, Sister Helena, to the event today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Murray, and thank you so much for the kind invitation. And I guess before I start, I'd also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the people of the Larrakia Nation and the traditional owners of the place I'm very privileged to live and work on. And I'd just like to thank them for their ongoing custodianship of this beautiful place, land and waters. Pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and also thank them for their for enabling me to walk and travel safely on their beautiful country.
Thanks, sis, and also to all our communities and all our brothers and sisters on the event today. Sister Helena, I suppose today's Yarning Circle is just obviously around, the whole event around the In the Black Northern Territory Indigenous Business Resilience Program, which goes until October, is really focused about building resilience, providing advice to Territory and brother and sister businesses out there in regards to what are some of the opportunities, what are some of the steps and support mechanisms that are out there for our Territory and Indigenous businesses. I'm just wondering from your department, firstly, if you can give us a bit of an overview of your department and what are some of the opportunities that are available to Territory and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses?
Yeah, so I work for Territory Families. I guess most of you will know that that's the department that looks after youth justice and child protection, along with other program areas like our seniors and concessions scheme and the areas that Murray talked about that I look after in terms of domestic family, sexual violence, our senior Territorians, multicultural affairs, our youth activities, school holiday activities, that sort of thing. And this department was formed about 4 years ago. And, we had Royal Commissions. Everyone knows that. And this department was born out of that and has been working on a reform piece because of that. When we formed the department, there was very few dollars or contracts, I guess, being let to, or the department was partnering with Aboriginal businesses and organisations. But last year, the department, out of our $330 million budget, funded over $12.7 million worth of funding to Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander businesses and organisations. And that's been across a range of, areas. Things like, you would know that we fund bush camps. You know that we fund organisations to do family finding. We fund a range of Aboriginal businesses and organisations to run youth activities for us. We fund Aboriginal businesses most recently as well in terms of support around emergency management. So that's another thing this department is responsible for. So and I guess that's come out of the COVID, and I just would like to acknowledge how challenging that has been for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses, and in particular our small businesses. We fund Aboriginal security businesses in the department, catering, things like that, as well as obviously consultancies, people to do facilitation for us, research, that type of thing. But also, and most importantly, we rely on our Aboriginal businesses to guide us and show us how to do the cultural work really, really well. We've funded businesses around artwork, and this is the cultural and expertise, that knowledge that we have. Most recently, we've renamed all our rooms in this particular building that I work in Darwin Plaza. And I guess part of my role has just been to talk with the executives around, this is actually intellectual property, and very important intellectual property held by Aboriginal organisations, businesses, peoples and families. And it needs to be paid for appropriately and treated appropriately. So you can't just ask someone to come in and give us some names, larrikia names for our rooms, and that's it. So it needs to be treated with respect and business done in a proper way with the proper protocols being followed. So I guess that's a bit of what we've done over the last few years. I think in terms of the opportunities, I wanted to talk a bit around, and some Aboriginal businesses will already know this, so please, if there's any learnings you can share with me, I'd be very grateful. But it's about how to interact with government. And then also one of the very particular opportunities to the Northern Territory, and as Murray said when he did the intro for me, is I've worked in the Commonwealth and Queensland governments, and it's not the same there. But here we have a buy local and a local content and policies and framework. So what that means is we have a preferential way of doing business with Northern Territory businesses. And each government agency, and there's 22 of them, and the opportunity is there's $1 billion of spending into the Northern Territory through government, and through that 22.
Hey, what to do with up here? How are you?
Hey, Tim.
Through those 22 agencies, and each of those agencies actually get audited on how well we do around buying local, buying from Northern Territory businesses. So I guess there's, and in particular for what we call our Tier 1 and Tier 2 procurements, we have to, before we go outside the Territory, we have to go to the NT ICN, which I'm sure you've all heard about, to check that there's no business on that list of businesses that can do what we need to in the Territory, and then if there's not, then we go out. So that's for contracts up to $100,000. So I guess, sorry, were you going to ask something, Murray?
Oh, just in regards to, just for our brothers and sisters on the line at the moment, ICN is the Industry Capability Network family, just for your information. Sorry, sis.
That's all right, no worries. And I think when people think about providing services to government in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business context, we go straight to things like cultural expertise, welcome to country, things like I've mentioned around room naming, artwork, that type of thing. And then probably secondly, we also go to things like consultancies, facilitation, reviews, people and businesses who can provide those sorts of services. But there's a whole range of standard services across government that a whole range of categories that businesses can supply. And that's everything from cleaning, catering, removals. We recently moved really, was from one end of the floor to the other, but still we had to have a removalist. And anyway, there was talk about, which removalists we use. And I said, well, are there any Aboriginal removalist companies in the NT? And why wouldn't we prefer that business over another business? Yeah. And I guess the reason I asked this, and the reason that I talked about in my intro about the accountability, is because Territory Families has an Aboriginal Cultural Security Framework. So that's an approved document. It's about how we work with our families, clients and partners, but it's also about how do we look for the opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in terms of empowerment, prosperity, and obviously through business, through employment, through jobs. That's a foundational piece of that. So, that for us is our hook to say, well, we need to work in a culturally secure way. Where's the opportunities we can provide to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, organisations and businesses? Why wouldn't we choose an Aboriginal company to do our removals? Things like that. And I mean furniture removals, not removals of children. Sorry. Yeah. That's our department. We have a whole remote workforce as well. So things like, and because of that, we have a whole heap of homes, offices. These need to have repairs and maintenance. They need to have grounds maintenance, all of these type of things that Aboriginal businesses, and particularly our smaller and locally grown remote businesses, should be able to have opportunities with.
Yeah. So in regards to back on a couple of points you shared, and I really do appreciate it. So it sounds like the procurement supply chain opportunity is numerous around a number of categories, from services to goods, I suppose, and you shared that obviously the departmental offices go through ICN for those, for opportunities and for suppliers within that 100K mark. Are some of the other aggregators within the Northern Territory also explored? Like, for example, in the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network, and we've got various other, obviously, organisations on the ground. Are they also explored as well in regards to that, scanning in regards to potential territorial and Indigenous businesses?
Definitely. So the NTICN is looked at, as is the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that was where I was sort of going to in terms of the opportunities. It's about how do you connect into them? Yeah. And it is about knowing how government procurement works. And part of that is being plugged into the ICN and the NT Indigenous Business Network, the Capability Network and the Indigenous Business Network.
Yeah.
But it's also about understanding where to look for the opportunities, and that our department and all the other departments have to forecast tenders and procurements. Yeah. And that is all done on what's called the QTOL website, and that's the Quotations and Tenders Online website. Yeah. So if you go on there, it has a list of different procurements that are being let by different departments, and it has a range of categories: housing, construction, everything from the big multi-million dollars projects to smaller projects and smaller, I guess, services. And the other place to look is a system that we call Grants NT. So I think probably February last year.
Yeah.
All grants now. And I know that I'm from Queensland, I say grants, not grants, but for all grants now, we use Grants NT. So if you go onto the Grants NT website, you will see a list of available grants in there, and that it's like a forecasting system as well, and it tells you when the grants are open. You apply through that system, and I think that has been a bit tricky for people to get used to using.
Yeah, okay.
But you can always get support from whichever department it is that you're applying to for the grant. So I think there's some of the key things, being plugged in and connected to those networks. So where are the opportunities being forecast from government? It's on QTOL and it's on Grants NT.
Yeah, and family, look, who are listening in today, look, it's important, and what Sister Helena is sharing there, I think, is really valuable around don't be reactive when you're looking at procurement opportunities or tenders or proposal opportunities or grants. It's also about getting ahead of the game. Sometimes, as we all know, regardless of if we're in business or in not-for-profits or in community orgs, grants sometimes they're not a bottomless bucket. So to get in early, to get informed about it, but also to get prepared about the application process is also imperative. But also the fourth piece around what Sister Helena is sharing, and I share humbly, Sis, is really important from a procurement perspective. So you can start to identify who are the key points of contact you should be talking about to develop relationships. Remember, it's about relationships, family. Sometimes it's 90% of what we do, and we're good at it as brothers and sisters. Always been really, really great around relationships, having the yarn. But around the procurement space, and these links will also be provided within the recording and obviously right now. But the big piece around this, if I can share this humbly, is get ahead of the game. Right? Is that a fair comment, Sis? In regards to, it's about getting ahead of the game so you're aware of it, and people are seeing you actively trying to engage with their department. Is that a fair comment?
Definitely. And one of the points I was going to make is about, yes, plug into the systems that are available, but also use your networks and use the connections, and come in and talk to us. It's always, we've always got an ear to, well, and I guess, we're always thinking about where can we get the expertise we need. Yeah.
So in regards to around, a big piece what I hear as well around, since the department's, been established in the last 4 years, is obviously there's a continual improvement process about connecting with our supply chain opportunities and our brothers and sisters in business. I'm just wondering, I know you shared about the connection through ICN. So one of the things, and being a member of NTIBN, the the Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network, what are some of the other ways that Territorial and Indigenous businesses can contact the department?
I think, we're very good at our connections, our networks. And to me, as an Aboriginal person, that flows to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses. That's where our value add is. Non-Indigenous businesses don't have the same level of connectedness with the community. And I think that is a real selling point in terms of our value proposition. So use those networks. People come in and talk to us all the time about what projects they've got, an opportunity here in this community. And I guess COVID has been a real challenge, but it also has been an opportunity, because a number of Aboriginal businesses have, and I'll say stepped up, but they were already, stepped up. It's just about to have that change, small change to focus, meet the market, and be in there and, willing to partner with people. So
great.
I think the message is simple. Use your networks and don't be scared of government. I will acknowledge that the bureaucracy is sometimes, and a large part of the time,
it's challenging.
It's challenging to work with. Come
on. I'm sure brothers and sisters on the call and people are listening into this and this part of the program overall, the bureaucracy is saying, but I think one of the pieces I'm also hearing here, Sis, as well, and please, if I'm off kilter, please correct me, but there's champions, right? There's brothers and sisters like yourself who are fighting the good fight, regardless of Indigenous and non-Indigenous, that really do want to embrace the territorial and Indigenous business talent that's up there, which is amazing, into their supply chain. It's just also about, but everyone changes so much, so it's really, really hard. How do you keep consistent connection? Because you're always trying to reconnect with departments, with brothers and sisters as they're changing. Do you have any advice on how our territorial and Indigenous businesses can sort of work through that to remain connected with the department?
I think it is about the champions, and I do acknowledge that it is the nature of the territory, and particularly some of our departments, that people do change and move through and move around and go back east or go home south, whatever it might be. But I think there's enough people, and particularly in our department and in a number of departments, I've come across people who've worked for the departments for 30 years. So, there's that sort of critical mass there, but I do think it is about finding the champions. And, and you guys are in positions to ask questions and lobby and that sort of thing. Public servants aren't. Yeah. But, I think it is about connecting with someone and being persistent. And I don't think that
100%.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And
yeah, exactly.
And while we might have to say no, or we might not be able to support in one way, there's a whole range of ways that that government can look to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses. So, yeah.
This is a department, I suppose, with, the evolution of social and emotional well-being and obviously traditional practices now being embraced by various departments, and obviously just around having tailored programs. Is a department, say, for example, we've got some awesome Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander brother or sister or organisation out there doing some really amazing things in communities, but they're utilising traditional healing practices or cultural practices. Is a department, like, for example, how would a territorial Indigenous business who have a really great proposal idea or a framework idea, is the department open to those type of opportunities or those type of ideas?
Because we work with children and young people largely, as also our seniors and women experiencing violence and their families, I think we're always open to opportunities. There was a terrible situation happen in community. Aboriginal organisations and businesses came to us and said, we would like to be able to do this. And our CEO said yes, because we know that the Aboriginal organisations and businesses have the connection with the families that we are working with. So I think and our CEO particularly, Ken Davies, is very open to partnering. He's very open to and totally understands cultural competency, cultural security. He's a non-Aboriginal man, but he's worked in the Territory since the early 70s, where he started teaching preschool at Papunya. I think, I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I do think that government in general is open to that.
Yeah, and we're sort of going around in regards to the supply chain opportunity. What I'm hearing there from our discussion is that forward planning, the importance of forward planning in regards to looking at those options around Grants NT, looking at QTOL, looking at the NTIB and making sure you're connected into that. Are you a member of the Indigenous Capability Network? The one thing I'm also hearing about is the champions. There are champions within the department and other departments within the Northern Territory government. It's about building and using those networks and those connections to, one, not necessarily just look for those opportunities, but develop those relationships, which is really important to also be able to look for opportunities that are, maybe they'll be able to connect you to talk to someone else in another department. It may not be related to you, but, and then the other piece I'm also hearing as a back end piece there, which is really, really powerful, sis, and I do appreciate this, is that if you have an idea out there, and you have a proposal idea, look, the worst you can do, brothers and sisters, is ask. Is that a fair comment, sis, in regards to, look, I've got an idea. What do you think about this? Is there something that we can do with it? If we don't ask, then we don't know. Is that a fair comment, sis?
Yeah, and I live by the rule of if you can't ask, you can't have.
Yeah.
So, and don't be ashamed about it. We as Aboriginal businesses and Aboriginal people have a lot to offer government.
Yeah.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses do return on social investment way better than non-Aboriginal businesses. We know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses employ more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, so we're creating prosperity that way. I think you shouldn't be shameful or be shame about what you have to offer, and be really proud of it, because so many people are doing so many good things.
Yeah,
so,
amazing.
Yeah.
And this comes back to, I did a session sort of, I think it was earlier this week, or last week, was around taking the shame out of marketing, being in front of a camera, sis, and having the yarn. So, look, don't worry about this, by the way. So, but around the most important thing, I think, if I can just ask you in this regards to just summing up what we're sharing today, if you had 3 key points that you wanted to share with our Territorial and Indigenous businesses today, what would they be?
Would be to connect into the ways that government tenders and procures. So that's what we've already talked about. It would be to look to the government agencies that align with your value statement, your proposition statement, and your capability statement, and what you want to add value to and what you can add value to. So look at the agencies where there is a nice alignment there. And I guess I also wanted to talk about the local content part of the Northern Territory government business. So we now, in every tender, no matter what it is, and I've recently been on a tender panel for a $220 million project.
Yeah, wow.
Currently on around 100K project. And it is the same criteria around local content. And it's hard for Northern Territory businesses to explain that, because obviously they're doing it day in, day out, breathing it and living it. But I think that is a really important piece of the puzzle, is to get that right in your tender documents. And just to give you a bit of detail, I think it's about the value for territory. So what is going to be, what is going to be available from government procuring your business to support the economic, social, cultural and environmental lifestyle of the and values of the Northern Territory. This criteria in tenders is weighted highly, always, because of the focus on building the territory.
So what would be the average weighting? Is there a standard number that they utilise? Like, for example, within some other states and territories, is thinking about what the Gold Coast does, that's in the Queensland family, is 30% and more in regards to that local content piece. What is it like in regards to for the Northern Territory?
So it's anywhere from 25 to 40%.
Yep.
So
great.
It's weighted highly compared to other, criteria in your procurement documents. And when you're thinking about developing that in terms of your local content, it's about, I'm just looking to my notes here, but
you're right, that's okay.
About employment. Obviously, you're going to have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people employed as your business. What's the profit sharing arrangements? Are all the profits going to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Yeah, that's
particularly important if you're in a collaborative agreement, a consortium or a joint venture. How are you going to employ Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? How are you going to build capability and skills of Territorians? How are you going to transmit your knowledge as part of this procurement? What is your Indigenous procurement policy as a business? We don't, you wouldn't sort of think that an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander business would need to have an Indigenous procurement policy.
Yeah, no, we have one. We have one in our company, sis, 100%.
Yeah, so how are you going to show that you have a policy commitment to preferencing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses yourself as a business? And I know we do that. Yeah. I know we do that, but it's about formalising it and being able to demonstrate it. How is the training that you're offering, or maybe, you know, if it's a construction project, how is the training apprentice, how is that all going to be rolled out? And again, what's your social return on investment? Yeah. And it is something that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses do well.
Yes, very well.
Yes. And I think probably the only one, and this is a recent one, obviously, is, well, have you thought about how you can deliver in a COVID-safe way? And there's value in that for government, that we're reassured that, you know, we know that people, our clients, our partners are going to be safe when we engage you in that COVID space. Yeah. And I guess the thing about that is just don't assume that the panel knows anything about your business or about you, or just because, when I say just because, but if you are an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander business, explain it all. We already do it all. Just set it out and explain it. And following on from that, always ask for feedback or a debrief. And don't be ashamed to do it. And people and when I say people on panels put a lot of effort into explaining to people where applications can be improved.
Yep. Deadly, sis. Look, I just want to say, like, too deadly. Look, I have to say that a lot because I think there's some really great gems there, brothers and sisters, to take away from this discussion and what Sister Helena has shared. Sis, I just want to say thank you very, very much for your time today in regards to you joining me and joining our family in regards to sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your spirit. And I just want to say, finish as I started, family and brothers and sisters that are out there today. I want to acknowledge humbly and respectfully all Territorial and traditional custodians, our ancestors, our elders and families. There's businesses that are out there tick and tail, and the ones that are trying to stay above water. You're not alone. The In the Black Northern Territory Indigenous Resilience Program is one avenue of many, and there's a lot of support services out there. Reach out, and as Sister Helena has shared today, if you don't ask, then you know how you're going to receive, how you're going to find out. It's about being connected. It's about the network, remaining connected and developing those relationships. I want to pay respects to, especially to our future superstars, our brothers and sisters that are creating their own footprints, and extend that deep respect and thanks to everyone that has joined our yarning circle with Sister Helena Wright today. And if you are watching this on Facebook, make sure you comment down below with Deadly. Remember that the program, the In the Black Indigenous Northern Territory Indigenous Business Resilience Program, is focused on Territorial Northern Territory businesses, Indigenous businesses. And make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, the description and the link will be down below. Make sure to join us this Friday for our Northern Territory Indigenous Business Spotlight, where we're going to have a Deadly business on there. We'll share those details, and I'm sure you've already seen that. But I just want to say thank you very much wherever you are joining us today within our global village. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. Thank you.